G'day guys, how you doing? It's the Kiwi, and as the title says to this video, this is what happened when I died. So it's long overdue. I've been talking about doing this video for many years now. It's a very personal experience, so it's taken a huge amount of courage for me to actually step up and do this. I'm actually really nervous about it. The first thing I want to let you all know is that all of us as human beings, we process alcohol, anything with caffeine, sodas, drinks with a lot of sugar. Our body will process these as a poison. Now, depending on how sensitive our bodies are to those diuretics, because that's what they are, the diuretics, will depend on how your liver will flush your body. Well, for me, my body sees it as nothing but sees alcohol, caffeines, coffees, sugary drinks, sodas, that sort of stuff as nothing but a pure poison. So my body will go into a full-blown flush. And I will, depending on what it is, my body will flush 3 to 5 times faster than the average human being. Then what happens is, if I'm chronically dehydrated, I will have seizures. And those seizures are heart seizures. So what happened with me was, it was a Friday night. I was 24 years of age. I caught up with a buddy of mine, John, who lived just down the street. We went into town, drove into town, caught up with some friends at a local restaurant bar called the Auto Lodge. Had a couple of quiet drinks there. People that we caught up with there, we went to another bar in town. This is years ago, back in the 90s, early 90s, and had a couple more drinks at that bar. And the people that we met along the way, we ended up going to another friend's restaurant. Well, it was more of a cafe actually in town, and we chilled out there for a couple of hours. Had some bottles of wine, champagne, nothing crazy. It wasn't a bender or anything like that. Ate food. Chef made us hors d'oeuvres and all that sort of stuff. And then we went back to John's place, chilled out there for a little bit, and I walked home. You know, John only lived about an 1/8 mile from my parents' house at the time, and I walked home, went to bed. And a few hours later, it was about 6 in the morning, I woke up and I felt like absolute hell. And in typical Lawrence fashion, I just went down to the bathroom and brought up what I thought was inside of me that was making me feel like hell. What it was I didn't realize how chronically dehydrated I was. So once I got done emptying myself out, I stood up and I collapsed. I fell to the floor. Well, this is the first time anything like that had ever happened to me in my entire life. And it surprised me. It didn't spook me. I was just like, what the hell's going on? You know, what's happening here? And as I'm trying to figure out what had happened, my heart started to race. And it felt like a Gatling gun going off my chest. It was just like, and I was like, never had that happen to me before. I was like, good God, what the heck's going on here? And as I'm processing these thoughts, my heart just, boom, locked up. And I'm just like, you start to gasp for air like you're a fish out of water. Now, I was like, what is going on here? I've never had this happen to me before. Something's not right. Something's wrong. Something isn't, you know. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't worried. I was just like, what's going on? And as I'm processing these thoughts, my heart goes boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, whew. All right, we're good. Thank goodness for that. So, in my infinite wisdom, I started to process why this started to happen. And what happened, I came up with the conclusion that I'd stood up too fast, and for whatever reason, I got lightheaded and passed out. Or collapsed. So what I thought was, okay, I did this too fast, so I'm going to move more slowly this next time, and, you know, maybe I'll crawl back to my bedroom. All this stuff, I was so aware of it. It was like, you know, so conscious of what was going on. Obviously, or else I wouldn't be explaining this to you. But what happened was, as I started to move around in the bathroom, my heart started to race again, and the exact same thing happened. My heart locked up. This time I'm on my knees, and I fell forward onto my hands, And I was just like, okay, now we've got a problem. This is not good. Whatever's going on with me right now, this isn't cool. What's happening? I start processing everything again, trying to figure out what's happening. Now, the silly thing about it was I still wasn't panicking. My parents were at home. I didn't yell out for help. I didn't do anything. I'm just fully immersed in this experience and what's going on. And as I'm processing this, trying to really figure what's happening, I'm starting to get a little concerned now. My heart starts pumping again. Sweet. Thank you. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I'm just going to lay here for a minute because something's not right and I need to figure out what's going on. So I chill out in the hallway. I just in the first section of the hallway outside of the bathroom, and I'm like, okay, let's give this another shot. And as I start to move again, my heart starts racing. Well, this time I started to surrender. I said, okay, God, if you want me, I'm yours. I figured, it must be my time. My number's up. If you want me, I'm yours. And as I started to surrender, this warmth washed over me. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And as that warmth washed over me, my heart locked up again. And this time, I completely let go. And I said, okay, looks like I'm yours, God. And as I let go, these euphoric feelings, these feelings are just absolutely, words can't even describe them. The feelings of love, peace, tranquility, safety. Even though I'm dying, everything's okay. Like everything is 100% okay. And these euphoric feelings are just washing through my body. And I never forget it to the day I die again. I just put my head down in my hands like that, or in my arms, and I can still, it's the most incredible, haunting thing that I can hear to this day, is those final puffs of air exiting my body. And that last final puff of air just went, ah. And as that puff of air exited my body, I can still, my head was like that, I can still hear it so clearly. It's incredible. I left my body. And next thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at my legs, right? And I'm looking at my toes. And then down below me is my body. My body's lying. And I could see myself just lying on the hallway floor of my parents' house. And it was just incredible. It was just the most incredible feeling. I just took it in. I just took it in. I'm like, oh my gosh, there I am. I've died. Wow. And then I lift my head up and I start to look around my parents' house. And I realize that the roof is off my parents' house. And I'm looking at like this 3D architectural rendering of my parents' house. It was very cartoon-esque. Things take on a whole different dimension when you looking at man-made stuff through your soul's eyes, once you've left your body like that. And I was just like, wow, check that out. And I remember looking over to my parents' bedroom, the master bedroom, off to my left. And I could see both my parents lying in the bed. I can still see it clearly to this day, and there's light shining out of their bodies. And I was like, wow, look at that. My parents have got souls. Huh. Kind of a jacked up thing to say, but if you knew how brutal my childhood was, it'd be like, you'd understand why. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I went back to focusing on my body for a little bit and looking around. And as I looked over to my right, I looked further out and I realized that everything outside of my parents' house was just this inky black abyss, like this pure black darkness. And I was just like, whoa, my gosh, that's freaking amazing. Like this darkness was everywhere around. And I think this is where people get really, really petrified when they die. They see that darkness. And what that darkness is just us disconnecting from the human consciousness, the combined human consciousness that makes all this happen. And I realized that it was like it was intrinsically known inside of me. So what happened, I was like, so the only thing I'm aware of consciously is the last thing I was around, which is my parents' house. That's the only thing I knew. And I was just like, wow, and I'm processing this information. Like, it's like my body's metabolizing, or my soul's metabolizing. You can feel the information flowing through every element of your soul, the energy in it. And you're processing this information. And it's not processing here. Like I said, it's your whole body's processing this information. And I've had this feeling to look up, and as I looked up, I was like, wow, now that's amazing. There was this bright, bright light above me, and I'm looking at it, and as I went to look back down at my body, that light just went whoosh, all around me, just completely engulfed every aspect of everything, all around. And I was just like, what is this? And it was so bright. It was this crystalline, bright, bright white light. And I'm looking around at everything, or at this light, trying to figure out what it is. And you're trying. It's like it's too much for your soul to take in, and you're trying to look for something in this light, any something. And it was the first little tinge of like, I'm not feeling too easy right now. And as I got that feeling, I started to hear this like, you know how in movies they'll have insects, thousands of insects crawling on the ground. They make that noise. That's kind of what it sounded like. I'm like, what is that? And I'm looking around trying to figure out what it is. And I looked down. And I was like, oh my gosh. And those blades of grass just like popping up out of this light, just popping up, and every time a blade of grass popped up, it made that, and it had consciousness. That's the thing that blew me away. And it was like I felt like I was floating on every blade of grass, like it was lifting me up. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as I lifted my head up, it just, this whole world just went, and I'm just looking around, and I'm just in awe of what I'm looking at. I mean, it was beautiful. It was, the colors were so crystal clear, so bright. The sounds were just unreal. It was like all your senses were 1,000-fold on fire, like everything. When the wind blew past you, it was like it was holding you and embracing you. And it was just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. You got the sky and the clouds, and in the same position as the sun, believe it or not, there's an even brighter ball of light, and it was just emanating this energy out over everything. And I realized, that's God. Look at that. Unreal. It was just this magnificent ball of light. You just knew intrinsically that it was the life force of everything. And I saw this golden city way in the distance. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to head towards that city. I want to see what that's about. And the moment my consciousness went towards that city, my body just started to go. You weren't walking, you just started to move. You started to glide. It was like where your consciousness, where your attention flowed, where your attention went, it was like everything flowed that way, everything. And I start moving towards this city quietly, just moving along, taking everything in. And as I'm passing trees, I'm looking at the birds in the trees, and they've got bright light. It doesn't matter. It's every bird in every tree. Their singing was just, it was like angels. It was just unreal. The sounds were so incredible. It was unreal. The trickling of water down a river stream. Oh my God. It just was incredible. And there's light shining out of these all the animals, the birds. As I went past this tree and some bushes, some deer came out from behind the bushes, and they were looking at me. And they've got this bright golden light shining out of them. And it was like they knew me and I knew them. You could feel the consciousness, the oneness between the two, between us. And it was like you were communicating with them, but you weren't communicating with them, but you were communicating with them. You knew them and they knew you. And you just stop and you just look at them, and they're not afraid of you in any way, shape or form. They just stood there and they just took you in. So I carry on moving towards this beautiful city. Oh, sorry. The other thing that was mind-blowing about what rolled out in front of me, I grew up in the Wairau Valley of Blenheim, New Zealand. And what rolled out in front of me was the exact same Wairau Valley. This golden city was right up in the foothills, up towards an area called St. Arnaud. But there was no man-made stuff. There was nothing man-made there. There was no streets, no roads, no homes. It's like it's the same realm, but different. It's like this. It's like beyond this. It's like if a veil drops down, you can move into that realm, and it's the same place. That's the crazy thing about it. So what happened was, as I'm moving along, I'm looking over to my left, and all of a sudden there's these two balls of light just go poof, and about the size of a melon, just like pop, pop, pop up over to my left. And I'm like, that's interesting. And as I carried on moving, they carried on following along with me. And as they followed along with me, I looked back over to them again. They just went poof, lengthwise and out. And they did. They made a sound. It was just like a whoop. And it was the shape of a surfboard, like an almond-shaped surfboard, pointy on each end, but like about 6 feet in length. I'm like, wow, that's kind of took me aback a bit. So I carry on moving, and as I move, these two shapes follow me. And as they're following me, they start to take on a human form. The head starts to form, but still in this bright, bright light, okay? And their arms and their torsos and then down to their legs, and I'm watching them, and I finally start to slow down. I'm really taking them in as their form is finally finishing, but they're still this bright, like golden light. And they do this. They've got no noses, no eyes, mouths. It's just a golden outline of a human being, and they just go. And it was the first time there where I got that knot in my stomach, and I was just like, oh, what the hell? Well, I didn't say what the hell. I was like, what the heck? Their eyes were just this deep, black, inky abyss. Just their almond, their big almond eyes. Absolutely huge. And it took me aback. It's genuinely, it did. And I'm like, what the heck? And they're here. And this time I started to kind of like move around like this. I was like, well, I don't know. I got that knot in my stomach. Because I was heading towards this golden city. That's where I wanted to go. And as I carry on moving, they're just floating along beside me. And I was just like, wondering, what's this all about sort of situation. That's happening. Their hair, human hair, starts to form on them, and then the facial features, and then the clothing, and out into the arms. And that was I stopped and I took that in. I was like, it was kind of trippy because it was like watching wax melting over them. And as they're taking on more of a human form, they asked me, like, what are you doing here, Lawrence? I looked at them. I was just like, you know who I am? And they're like, yes, we know who you are. And I'm like, oh. Seriously. And I start to move along, and they said, what are you doing? I said, I want to Golden City. I want to go look at that. Well, when we're communicating with each other, there's no mouths moving. It's all like telepathy. And the incredible thing about it is that it's like everything new. Like, it wasn't just myself having a conversation with these two beings. It was everything new. Everything, from the trees to the animals to the grass to the water. Everything has consciousness. Everything has consciousness. And I was like, I want to go towards the city. And they said, well, you need to go back, Lawrence. And I was going to stop and I look at them and I said, well, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And I start to move again. They said, Lawrence, it's not your time. You need to go back. And I stopped and I looked at them again and I said, but why do I need to go back? And they tell me, and say, well, you've got things that you need to do. Not learn. You've got things that you need to do. And I was like, well, like I told you guys, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And what is it that I need to do? And they said, we can't tell you that. You'll know it when it happens. And I still don't know. Sorry. But anyway, I start to move towards the city again. And they said, yet again, they're like, Lawrence, you need to go back. And I stop and I look at them and I say, guys, I told you, I don't know how I got here. I'm not going back. I know I'm home. I'm staying. And as I was getting towards the end of that conversation, I started to move again. And they go, fine then, have it your way. And I was like, I stopped and I looked back because they hadn't moved with me at that point. I stopped and I looked back and I was like, what? Because I just knew intrinsically I was in trouble. And I looked back and I was like, what? And they looked at me, both of them, and they said in unison, fine then, have it your way. And right at that point, this massive, massive hand grabbed me from behind. Massive hand. And all those feelings of love and peace and tranquility and safety, all these incredible feelings that you have on the other side just went, I can't tell you, 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. They just went through the roof. And I was just like, oh shit. And that energy flowed through every part of my being. But the other thing that flowed through me was the power of that hand. The power was something that I've never experienced and will never experience here on this planet. It's the power that you know that if God, creation, wanted us gone, it'd be like that. Fine, you're done. Done with you guys. And as as I'm just taking this in, it's just every part of my being just is experiencing this. I'm tipped over, and as I'm tipped over, everything just washes away, and I'm just railed back into my body. And this is why I didn't want to do this. Just brutal. It's just been brutal. What people don't understand is once you have experienced that, anything that happens here traumatically for me, because I know God's love now, because I know what that feels like, because of that experience, when people are horrible, nasty, vindictive, the stuff that people say to me is 1,000-fold, because I know what God's love is on this side of the spectrum. I know. So when people are just disgusting to me, it's 1,000-fold. The effects aren't the same for me as a human being, and I want people to experience that. It's as incredible experience as what it was to be able to keep myself in check, to be able to keep myself locked down, has been one of the most incredible feats of tolerance a human being could ever possibly go through. And I know there's other people on this planet that have had the hand of God put them back in their body, and I'd love to be able to talk to them, because I know that they've experienced the same thing. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's why I spend so much time by myself now. It's why I spend so much time alone. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. So I find sanctuary and safety in just doing these videos and reaching out to people and trying to help people this way. But truthfully, I still don't know what it is that I've got to do. But if anybody's got any questions about life here, I can tell you this much. The first thing that I really got out of this experience is letting go. Is just letting go. Just letting go. Let your own being, your own consciousness guide you. Everything is consciousness. Everything in this world where we live is pure consciousness. Everything is a part of creation. God is not a he or a she or a duck or a goat or anything. God is everything. God is the energy of the universe. Everything. So the fact that they make God look like, whatever, this old grey-haired man, God's everything. God is everything. It's the Father, the Mother, the yin, the yang, the happiness, the sadness. He's love. He's hell. There's so many things that God is. But if you've got any questions, anything, anything, feel free to ask me in the comments section. I'd be happy to talk about it with you. There's been a lot of other stuff that has happened since that experience in regards to a connection with the divine, my understanding, my empathetic side. There's so many facets to that experience and what it actually brought to the surface of me as a human being. So there you go. Sorry about the tears, but hey, keeping it real. So anyway, I'll post this up. I'm nervous about this, to be honest with you. But anyway, if you've got any questions, do feel free to ask. Okay? Thank you.